Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 292. It is Sunday, April 28th as we're recording this. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
Hey everybody, happy Avengers weekend.
Yasha Wilson.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And Michelle Hillard.
Hello everyone. Hey.
As Bobby said, it is Avengers Endgame weekend, which means that's basically all we have on the agenda today. We will be talking about Avengers Endgame, and I'm sure everyone knows the drill. There's really not much to say without talking about spoilers, so we'll start things off by sharing our thoughts, spoiler-free, as we always do when we do this sort of thing. But I imagine pretty quickly we will give a big glaring spoiler warning, and from most of the show we'll be talking about spoilers for the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, I mean, sit tight while we share our spoiler-free thoughts, but then I would check out and come back after you've seen the movie for sure.
Give you the heads up to pause.
Yeah.
And I really wonder, of our listeners, who's having to tune out and come back? Like, who didn't see it of our listeners? Because
apparently the whole world saw it.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like everybody saw it.
Yeah, no, I would imagine most people turning the show on right now have seen the movie, but still got to say it.
Of course.
Just to be safe.
Of course.
And I mean, I don't know. I guess there's really nothing else to discuss. We could just jump right into it. We determined, or the bold determined our order of this before the show, off air. And God damn it, I drew my own name first.
Yeah, you did.
So rare. So rare.
This never happens.
It's so rare.
It is really rare for you to go for it like that. Like, almost never happens.
No. And and I have that power of, like, I was doing it alone. I was like, I could put this back, draw another name. But I didn't.
You were good.
I was good.
I'm so glad you were honest about not cheating and putting your name last.
Trust me, it crossed my mind.
That's funny.
I mean, it's funny. I've already discussed it. Michelle and I, recorded a spoiler effect last night, and that'll be on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. So we've actually already chatted about it.
Yeah, we already know how we feel about it. Fairly in depth, too.
Yeah, but anyway. I mean, and it's funny, even though I've already kind of discussed it, it's still like, oh man, how am I going to start this? And I've already talked about the movie once.
Where does the hesitation come from? I'm curious.
The hesitation
with everyone, with the exception of myself. It seems like everyone dreads being the first to go. I've never understood where you guys hesitate on that.
So my theory on this is that even though I think we all collectively respect each other's opinions on anything, and we actually like it when people have different opinions, at the same time, you don't want to be the one person that likes it and everybody else hates it, or the person that hates it and everybody else likes it.
So you feel like, for example, if you loved a movie, but then everyone else went first and they were all like, wow, that was really terrible, you might kind of come in going, well, I liked it, guys, but you wouldn't come out guns blazing going, it was the greatest movie you'd ever seen.
No, I wouldn't say that. And that's the thing. Even though that that could happen, I don't even think I would change my answer. I might maybe soften my answer.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, like everybody's like, yeah, it would be a lot softer,
right?
In a way,
right?
I guess that's what it is. Which is, it's kind of stupid. Does that make sense?
No, because I mean that's your opinion. You love something and everyone else hates.
And we all, I think, we all agree that we all are each entitled to our own opinions, and we all support each other.
Right, of course.
Anyways,
even if you guys are all crazy.
Exactly.
So,
and that being said, David, by all means, jump in. Let's hear your opinion.
You want to
get this thing started.
So you want to hear me rip Endgame to shreds, right? That's what you're expecting. No.
Mm-hmm. I'm all ready and geared up to hear what you have to say. So let's do this.
So this is going to be one of those rare times where I'm going to talk about a movie I've seen twice already. This almost never happens. We saw it. Michelle and I saw it Thursday night, opening night. Not the very first showing. We had a 10:30 p.m. ticket that night. So got home at 2:30 in the morning from that one.
That made work on Friday interesting.
And then saw it again early Saturday morning, an 8 a.m. showing. So we had the two extremes basically of show times. So I've seen the movie twice. I'm glad I have. I mean, I think I've said this before with any movie that we talk about on here. In a perfect world, I would see twice every time. You know, I am a big proponent of
Every movie?
I mean, just to be able to in depth discuss it. I mean, I guess you're right. There are some movies that I walked out of going, wow, that was terrible, and I have no need to see it again. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of movies, not every movie, but a lot of movies that, yeah, to really dig a little deeper in my mind on my thoughts, like, sure, I'd love to get a second viewing in before we talk about it. You know, if we weren't recording a podcast every week, maybe I'd be like, okay, one showing's good. And I mean, podcast or no podcast, I wanted to see this twice. So, yeah, saw it 2 times, and yeah, I thought the movie was great. I loved it. It's funny. I've been trying to like decide, do I want to use the word love? But I did love the movie. I really enjoyed my experience, even though, yeah, do I think the movie's perfect? No. And I definitely have some things that I want to bring up that were like minor issues, I guess, things I bumped on as I watched it. And maybe some of that plays into expectations. And I mean, especially with a situation like this where we go in, all of us are basically going into it having almost no idea what's going to even happen in terms of plot, because the marketing has been so good that they've really held back from telling us almost anything. And that's awesome. But at the same time, then that brings in, you know, my mind even more like, oh, so I think maybe they might handle it this way or that way. So when it kind of goes a different direction, it's like, that's cool. But then was I looking forward to the way I had in my head, you know, kind of thing? I don't know. But yeah, there's some things in those first couple hours that, you know, maybe I bumped on, but this movie ends just ridiculously, incredibly well. And it's so much so that, yeah, like even my second showing, and I mean, Michelle can attest to this, I was pretty emotional about it. It was actually I was surprising myself how
It was surprising.
emotional I was about this film.
It was surprising.
And I mean, that's all I'll say. Obviously, we're not talking about spoilers yet, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. With that said, too, it's hard for me to I've been asking myself, like, do I think this is better than Infinity War? And that's a hard question for me to answer right now, because I liked Infinity War a lot. And I think right now I am leaning toward, I would say Infinity War is a better movie. But that's a tough question to answer. I feel like I need more time with Endgame and maybe even another viewing before I could really kind of stake my decision on which movie is better, Endgame or Infinity War. But that's where I am with Endgame. Yasha, you're next. What did you think of Endgame? And you saw it yesterday for the first time?
Yesterday, I saw it 2 times yesterday, so I spent pretty
so
much
you
my
saw it
day
twice.
at the movie theater.
Nice.
Man,
Yes, I've seen it twice.
back to back in
Pretty
one
much.
day. Jeez.
Pretty much, I went to a 9:00 showing, and then I went to a 2:30 showing. So I literally walked out at the area I was at, went and had lunch, and then the buddy that I was having lunch with, we just basically walked right back into the movie theater and saw it a second time.
Nice.
Were you able to get tickets that easily, or did you already get tickets so that you had both showings?
Oh, I had both showings. Like I
Okay.
bought the I bought the 9:00 showing earlier this week. I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I got great seats. Like I wasn't even really that concerned. Sitting in the back of the theater. I was sitting on an aisle, basically somewhere I would have probably chosen if it wasn't a huge blockbuster film, regardless. So I was completely happy with where I was sitting. It was a really, really big theater, great sound, great screen, great projection. All I can say is like throughout the entire movie, I think my jaw was perpetually dropped in just almost awe as to everything that was going on and everything that was taking place. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie and could not have been happier with the resolution, how it wrapped up. I thought it was fantastic. It was, I mean, just to kind of echo what David says, like, where do we go now? With this, because we don't have any real direction or any news or what the plan is. But as far as this movie goes, I did love this film. I could probably watch it again today. And I had some scenes that I absolutely just thought were fantastic. And I thought it was epic on all fronts. Lots of shocks. shock value to it, surprising. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did get emotional watching the movie the first time. I got emotional a couple of times faster than I expected, and had to choke back the tears just a little bit. Like I was just kind of like, I can't believe that I'm this emotional about a movie. But it just, I'm glad that nothing was ruined for me. You know, we talked about spoilers off air, and I would have been really upset if something was, because I really liked going in not knowing what to expect, not knowing what to look for. And I absolutely loved it. I couldn't give it a high. I mean, a friend of mine was giving me his review, and he's like, honestly, it's probably the best Marvel movie that I've watched. And he's like, and I don't feel like I'm overselling it when I say that. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, arguably the best movie, one of my favorite movies, if not the favorite movie that I've ever watched now. And he just couldn't say enough good things about it. And I just was like, oh, okay, well, that's, a bit much. And he's like, but honestly, I don't think that I'm overselling it. And I don't really think it's fair to say that he is overselling it. Like, I really, really loved this movie. Like, I thought it was a fantastically done film. So many epic scenes, so many fun scenes, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about them in spoilers, but I don't want to get into that yet. But just as far as the entertainment value of it goes, it starts almost at a full sprint of what the hell and just keeps going until the very end, and I loved every second of it.
Nice. All right, Bobby, that brings us to you. What did you think of Avengers Endgame?
And how many times have you seen it?
That's what I was about to start off with, because everyone else has mentioned how many times they've seen it and whatnot. And I was able to go 6 o'clock on the Thursday night to see it. And I had already had a ticket for 8 a.m. Saturday morning to see it. First time I saw it was in a regular kind of theater. So I already knew that I needed to see it in a Dolby, which was what my second time seeing it was in. So I was expecting those 2 times, but I started listening to other podcasts and looking at other reviews about it. And that got me hyped again to where I was like, I got to see it again today. And so I ended up going again on Saturday, late night, to go see it, because pretty much that was only openings there were. So I got to see it a third time in the IMAX, the large screen IMAX. And crazily enough, I was able to get literally a dead center seat in the IMAX, which was like, I don't know how, what did someone like not
Somebody
show
like
up
sold
and
their ticket back or something? Yeah,
exactly. Because I had dead center. And so I got to see it in pretty good formats for the movie. And just flat out, I mean, I loved it. There's no sugarcoating it or getting around it in any kind of way. It's to me, the movie in and of itself has this 3-act structure that any movie has, but the way they handle the structure, I just thought was done so well. And I have to give my first amount of props to the writers, Marcus and McFeely, because of what they were able to accomplish in being writers on this movie, as well as Infinity War, as well as, I think, Winter Soldier. I mean, just so many movies that's come before. So they were able to pull from all the things that they've done to tell a story, and to me, stick the landing of having all 21 movies lead up to this 22nd movie. And it's just a testament for what they've been able to do from the beginning, and tell this very layered story that rewards the people who've stuck around from the first movie to the end. And I just thought the things that they were able to do and elicit in the movie, like Yasha said, having someone say that this is their favorite out of all the MCU movies. I've seen some people who haven't been on board from the first movie all the way till now enjoying this movie so much, just because of everything that it brings to the table. And I have to second it, but just because they do a lot. And this movie also rewards you if you see it more than once, because you pull other things from it that you don't necessarily catch the first time when you're viewing it. So it's almost required viewing a second time just to really get everything out of it, squeeze that juice a little bit more. And I just think that they did the impossible almost, because there's so many different ways this movie could have failed or not lived up to the high expectations everybody had going into it. And for the critical, I guess, reviews of it, and then just the public opinion of it, for it to be so high, it's just an incredible feat to have pulled off. And it just makes you feel like, when am I going to have this kind of experience again? When is there going to be something this big that's so shared, not just here, but across the world, that everyone is having on the global scale? And knowing that most people, at least 90% of the people, feel like they really were able to accomplish what they set out to do. Not everyone's going to do that. And what comes to mind is Game of Thrones. Like, when that finishes, will everyone be on board and be happy with the way it ended, as they feel the way that this Marvel series has kind of come to this 22 movie conclusion, in a sense? I don't know, but that's what makes this all the more special. And I'm just happy to have been able to experience this, just as a kid who loved comics growing up and always wanted to see these stories being told on the big screen. It's really kind of a dream come true.
All right. Michelle, that leaves you.
That leaves me. So I'm going to echo a little bit of what you were saying about, I'm really impressed with people not spoiling this film, and how much, the studios worked to encourage people not to spoil this. I think it's one of those things. I mean, I wasn't around during those days, but it's, Alfred Hitchcock really had a huge promo and marketing go out for Psycho. And it was a big thing, like, don't spoil the ending. Do not spoil this film. And people didn't. And it makes me feel like, we're hearkening back to, like, if you're going to talk about it, make sure you're talking about it with somebody who has also seen it. Don't just open conversations on the subway or, everybody hanging at the water cooler. Like, let people see it and enjoy it with fresh eyes like you did. And I think that's really awesome. And I'm glad that, that's what's happening. For the most part, I think that's really what's happening. People are really honoring that. It's awesome. Because, Thursday night, I was so happy to go into this knowing absolutely nothing about this film. Like, I really was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have some ideas, but not a clue. And I'm glad. And I've seen the film twice, as David said. And I'm also really glad I got to see it twice, because I feel like I got to digest it a little bit more that second viewing. But I will say, when it comes to this film, I loved it. I really did. I loved it a lot. As far as my Marvel films go, it's easily in the top 5 of my favorite Marvel films. And if I really thought about it, it might be in the top 3, but I could easily say it's in the top 5 for sure. I'm extremely happy with this film. There's definitely issues that I have kind of along the way, especially in the first 2 hours. Kind of things that I'm like, yeah, but they're really nitpicky, honestly. Like, when I think about this film, I'm really happy with it. I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed it. I had all the feels up and down throughout the whole story. It just, it's so good. And I think they do a really good job to tell the finalities of some stories and box everything up into a nice explanation of basically what we've witnessed over the last 10 years. And I just couldn't be happier. Like, again, that ending. Oh, so good. so very good. And, I don't know. I'm really, really, really happy with this film as a whole. Very happy. Nitpicky things, but happy. And the humor, I think, was a big hit for me. I feel like sometimes I'll go to Marvel films and I'm not really feeling some of the humor sometimes, but this one, I thought the humor was spot on. And then, when it was sad, it was sad. When it was kick-ass awesome, it was just effing kick-ass awesome. Like, it was just really good. So, we are all in consensus. This movie's awesome. We liked it.
Basically, that's how it sounds.
Yeah. We liked it. We liked it a lot.
And I mean, yeah, as I said before, there's really not much else to say without talking about spoilers.
I mean,
unless you guys
really.
have anything else you want to chime in on real quick, we can jump right into it.
It's red alert time, kids.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
If you are actually listening to this and you haven't seen the movie yet, even if you're, I don't know, I was asked, my mom asked me this weekend. She was asking like, hey, like, because we talked about how had seen it twice, and she was just like, wow, like if this seems like a big deal, I mean, she's very separated from all of this, and she was asking like, do I really need to have seen all like the Marvel movies? Because she's seen, I think, a few of them. I don't know if she may have seen most of them. I honestly can't remember. I don't know, but she definitely hasn't seen all of them. And she was asking, do I need to see all of them? And my response was, I will say this, like, no, I think you could definitely go into this movie and enjoy it. But, and again, I'm going to say this I'm not spoiling anything, but yeah, the movie definitely plays to, I think, as you touched on, Bobby, like paying off to everyone who has seen these 21 films leading up to it. Like, and I think to fully appreciate and experience this movie, yes, I think those people will be the people who have seen all of them and are the big fans. But that's not to say like you have to be a diehard Marvel fan to enjoy it, but
Just to get a deeper appreciation of it, I think if you've seen the rest of them, this will have so much of a deeper meaning for you. The things that happen in this film will just mean so much more. Whereas,
right.
If you've watched some here and there and you haven't really been like a major whatever, and you're not like, I don't know, you see a few here and there, whatever, I'd say go and enjoy it. It's a good story. I think I definitely can say like, no, you don't have to see all of them. I would say if there was one that you had to see before seeing this, I would say, well, just make sure you watch Infinity War.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't really need to see the other ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious now going into the work week and maybe talking to other coworkers and other people who have seen it who aren't diehard fans. I'll definitely be curious to now talk to some people and hear their opinions, like people that went into it just to see it, but maybe not huge fans. Like, do they have the same kind of reactions to
Right,
things
they've
or
probably
not?
only seen like 7 of the films or
Yeah,
something randomly throughout 10
I haven't
years.
really seen or looked out for reviews like that online, and I don't know.
I
I'm kind
haven't
of curious
either.
to hear the reactions of people who aren't like in love with the MCU, basically.
Right.
But with that, yeah, we're going to talk about spoilers for the movie from here on out. So again, if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, go see it first and then come back and listen to the rest of this.
Red alert.
Red alert is here. All right. That's the
You're up first.
That's the all clear. I mean, we don't have to go in any order. And I mean,
Oh no, yeah, that's true. We just like to talk about it.
just talk about the movie. I will say real quick. So, I'm definitely happy, and I wanted to ask you, Yasha, what your first like movie going experience was that first showing you had on Saturday, because I am super happy that we got to see it also opening night, because for Michelle and I, and we saw the two showings together, the difference in audience from that 10:30 p.m. showing on Thursday night compared to the 8 a.m. showing Saturday couldn't have almost been any more different. It was night and day. And not to say that like one audience loved it and one audience didn't. It's just the Saturday audience just was not as into it.
They were not as vocally receptive or reactive to it as the Thursday night one was.
Right. And I was curious for you, Yasha, since you didn't get to see it until Saturday for the first time. Like, how was your audience when you saw it? Were they kind of pumped, or were they just kind of like, yay, or were they just like quiet?
Well, let's see. The 9 o'clock in the morning showing, they were into it. Like, there was definitely some applause. There was definitely some moments when we're in spoilers now, so I guess I can go ahead and just say the spoilers.
Yeah.
The moment that Captain America picks up the hammer, everybody kind of reacts. You
Right.
know, like that was a big one. It wasn't nearly as big as the 2:30 showing. Like the 2:30 in the afternoon showing, I felt like they were a little bit more awake and a little bit more into it. So I even think I heard somebody say, like, oh yeah, like, you know, in the crowd, like really getting a little bit amped and almost a little rowdy. And there was applause after the the 2:30 showing. People definitely kind of applauded. It wasn't like a loud applause, basically, because you're applauding for nobody, like nobody's there,
Right.
That worked on the film essentially. I mean, if you did work on the film and you happen to be in the theater and you hear that applause, I'm sure you'd feel fantastic about that. But there was scattered applause at the 9:00 in the morning, but I found the 9:00 in the morning was more of the crowd that's like, okay, I need to see this movie. Damn it, there's nothing else left. I guess I'll go at 9:00 in the morning.
Right.
Type of thing.
Maybe it's a morning thing.
Yeah, and I figured the 8 a.m. aspect played into our 8 a.m. showing on Saturday.
Yeah.
But still, it was just funny because like that moment that you mentioned is a perfect example. Like that moment with Cap and that Thursday night showing, like, first of all, the whole theater lost its ever-loving mind. But
Erupted.
And then on top of it,
mind.
we had this one dude, a teenager, I believe, right behind us, who just completely lost his shit. Like, stood up, like, fist pumping, screaming as loud as he could be, like, when that moment happened. So, I mean, we had, of course, had that experience Thursday night. And then Saturday morning, it was like, there was definitely kind of a reaction to it, but it was extremely muted.
I mean, I feel like I can almost say there was an exact number, like a 5-person that were like, yeah, awesome. Like, but that was it.
It was
and like
very quiet for the most part.
In comparison, I mean, Thursday night, our theater erupted. We lost our ever-loving
and
minds.
in moments throughout the movie, like that, Michelle and I had talked about before, like when they first start time traveling and that first title shot of New York 2012, like even that, like that Thursday night crowd, like
we lost our minds,
got all excited and crazy, but then Saturday morning, just complete no reaction whatsoever.
You could have heard a pin drop. It was crickets when that moment happened.
Weird.
It was super weird.
There were definitely reactions, but the 2:30 showing was definitely louder than it was the 9:00 in the morning. And honestly, that's one of the, I'm glad you guys mentioned that, because it's like that's one of the reasons why I did like to go to the midnight showings before in the past, before they started to do like the official Thursday night viewing,
right?
All that stuff, because those were so much fun to attend, because the crowd was so into it. I mean, just remarkably into it. Like I went to go see episode 1 years ago at midnight. They brought beach balls. Okay, they were blowing up beach balls in the theater, and it was like bouncing around, and it was an event. It wasn't just necessarily like, oh, I'm going to the movies. It was a damn event, and people got into it.
I used to see a lot of movies at midnight on Thursdays, and it was a thing. And the thing is, though, is if you're seeing a movie at midnight, you are a fan. Like it almost doesn't matter what movie you're seeing. Like you're very into whatever you're about to go watch.
Right. So
the crowd was always good whenever I see those movies. It would be Star Wars, or it would be Marvel films, or I remember I saw a couple Men in Blacks at that time. Like, this is back, but yeah, like people, you were seeing that movie at midnight, you were super into whatever you're about to watch. Right. And they're fun. Thursday night was a ridiculous amount of fun. Like there was so much excitement. Like when we were sitting, literally just waiting for the trailers to start, the air was thick. People were just giddy and antsy for this film to start. There was a lot of energy in the room, and it was awesome. Like it was a ton of fun.
All right. Well, getting into the movie itself, spoilers, and I mean, since we only have so much time, and I know Michelle and I will definitely have things we want to talk about, but we've also recorded another show. So, Bobby, Yasha, I really want you guys to have as much time as possible to say whatever you want to say. So I don't know if either of you want to jump in and start with anything. Please feel free.
Favorite moments you hated, things that made you cheer, things that make you cry. I want to hear it all.
What's that, Yasha?
I said, go for it.
I mean, I can, but then I feel like I want to leave time for you.
Again.
Huh?
Throw out a topic.
I said you fear you'll never be able to give up the mic again, and basically you'll wrap up the show.
So I'm like, I'm more trying to wait for Yasha, because I know once I start, it's going to be hard for me to stop.
Just pick a scene and get opinions on it.
Oh, I can't, Michelle. I can't. I'm telling you, once I start, because I'm starting from the top. working my way down.
He's working his way through the movie.
That's why I'm waiting. I think it might be better for Yasha to go first.
Bobby, we do have a Game of Thrones tonight.
We are on borrowed time. I love hearing you dissect the movie, but man, there's a lot. 3 hours of movie to dissect.
There's a battle at Winterfell this evening.
I too want to watch the Game of Thrones.
Bobby's going to be sending me audio files of his own recording to here. Will you throw all of this into the episode in post?
I know how to talk it through, but I just know once I start, I'm not going to want to stop. So I'm just saying, Yasha, you might have more of a condensed thing that you might want to go through first.
Well, I don't know about condensed, but all right. So let's just talk about some of the emotional moments of the film that I really got into. Right off the bat, when they bring everybody into, I think it was when Rocket and Gamora were sitting there. Not Gamora. Was it Gamora? No, it was Rocket and what's her name? The bald-headed chick.
Nebula.
That's like Nebula. Thank you. Nebula were sitting there and held hands. Like, I don't know why that got me choked up, but I looked at that and they were so sad. I was just like, okay, it's okay. It's going to be okay. The movie just started. Like, it's going to be fine.
We're 18 minutes in here.
Yeah. we're about 7 minutes into the film, and I'm already starting to get the feels. And I just was beside myself. For whatever reason, I don't want to sound like a heartless bastard, but the death of Natasha didn't actually make me all that emotional. Like, I just didn't get that emotional to the point where I was crying. I don't know, but other moments of the movie and other weird moments got me a little bit more excited, almost like, I don't know, I've never really cried for joy before, but when Cap picked up that hammer and really they started to lay into it, and watching the big three go at it against Thanos, because they all hadn't gotten a chance to go up against Thanos. It was always just, they were all doing it in one-offs, they were never all together. That got me. That was an emotional moment. And then Thor's goodbye to his mom. Like, that was really, I thought that was really an emotional moment as well for me, because it's like, seeing that is just, it was good. It was nice. And then obviously the big one when Robert Downey, Iron Man, finally let go. Just the goodbye that Gwyneth Paltrow gave him was really kind of solemn, and it's really kind of sad. And it was sad. And I'm not a huge Gwyneth Paltrow fan, but I thought that was very true to form as when it comes to you're losing somebody that you love, and they know that they're trying to stick it out, and you just tell them and reassure them. It's like, it's okay. We're going to be okay. Like, that right there just kind of hit me pretty hard, and I thought that was pretty emotional. Not so much the services, doing that, like with everybody there. It was really kind of fun to see all of it. I mean, they just had so many throwbacks to this film that it was just beyond measure of enjoyment for me. Like, I was just really surprised that they were able to get every actor that they could possibly probably ask and or want to come and reprise their role that they had in the MCU. Whether it was a big moment or a small moment, they were still just there for a fleeting very few minutes. And I thought that was just remarkable. And then obviously the goodbye when we fade to black with Chris Evans dancing with the love of his life, and the music that they were dancing to, that's gorgeous. It was absolutely perfect. It was such a wonderful wrap up for me. And I felt solemn because it was ending, but at the same time, it was a very fulfilled moment, if you would. Because, I mean, you could dissect the movie down to the very line of the whole time travel and everything and all the issues with time travel and everything like that. Or you could just accept it that it's a movie and we have this happy ending and we have this moment where it's kind of like everybody's fulfilled and everybody is happy with how this went and ended, and just move on with our lives. There's no real reason to dissect it down to the point where it's like you find the flaws in time travel, because you can do that with this movie. You can do that with any time travel movie, but at the same time, why would you want to do that? Like, why not just enjoy the film? Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I'm glad you bring this up, because honestly, you can either just take what they're giving you for this time travel situation and just take it and go, okay, cool. If that's the premise we're running with, cool, let's do this thing, And I think if you I think I don't know. I think with this film, you gotta run with it, because we spent so long getting to this point. If you're not running with this idea, I feel like you're almost hurting yourself a little bit of the enjoyment of this film. I mean, it's one thing if you specifically go to a movie knowing there's going to be time travel, like that's the focus of this film, and you want to break that apart, have a good time. I totally get that. But with this one, I think to like really shred it up and be like, well, this and this and this, and really dig into the time travel thing, honestly, you're depleting your own experience at this point. Like, just take what they have and go with it. Like, I'm not saying it's unflawed. I have some issues with it, but at the same time, like, I was just kind of like, okay, if this is how they're explaining their time travel, carry on. Let's do this thing. And I'm glad you bring that up.
I mean, it's like you just, like you said, like you buy in, accept, and move on. If you don't want to do that, then don't enjoy the movies and don't try to pick it apart with somebody just, for the sake of doing it. I thought they did a great job with the resolution and the recap. And not just that, but addressing like closure for even these personal characters. With Thor getting a chance to say goodbye to his mom, with Robert Downey Jr. finding out that his dad is flawed and as nervous being a dad and everything, and having that moment with him. And then, Chris Evans bumping into the love of his life and realizing what he really wanted to do. It's like you have these moments of like all these different films of basically a decade's worth of work coming full circle, and everybody kind of like that's one thing that Marvel does so well, is making these characters so flawed and having all these issues, even in the writings, like they're just these personal issues. But at the same time with this movie, we kind of have the resolution and like, okay, well, they're going to be okay. Like, they're fine. They found peace. So it's like, I mean, in a sense that we found peace as well. So it's just kind of an acceptance thing after that. And I couldn't have been, happier than with how the movie ended, and the resolution and the action and the fighting and bringing all the characters on screen, and some of the hero shots with like Captain America facing off against like this huge army and just not stopping until everybody comes into full circle. It's just like, you're like, this is over the top. This is over the top, and not in a bad way. This is so much. This is like, I could watch that battle scene over and over again. And that moment when he picks up that hammer and really gets after it, I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah, fuck yeah, let's get into this. Let's do this shit. And the humor, like you said, Michelle, was just spot on. It was absolutely wonderful. I thought they did a damn good job with the humor and interacting with it and mixing it up here and there. I thought it was fantastic. That's pretty much all I got, man. I mean, I can keep going, but
I was going to say, I'm going to make you feel a bit better. Like you were saying, like you got emotional pretty early on with Rocket and Nebula. Pretty shortly after that moment, and I hadn't been emotional at that moment, but I will say pretty shortly after that moment, the moment when Scott Lang sees his daughter Cassie, I started losing. Oh, yeah. That one got me, dude. Got me hard. Like snuck up on me. I'm in the theater. I'm like, dang it, I'm already crying. We're only like 20 some minutes in. Like I was like, what is happening? Like it really got me. Like, because I think, and again, like it's a credit to these are I think some people, they go to these superhero films and they don't treat the actors with the same respect. Like I think they think less of these actors and their skills, and it's just so not the story. Like to watch Paul Rudd's face in that moment as he's hugging his daughter, who he has now just realized he's just lost 5 years of her life, of her growing up into this teenager now. And you could tell he's really crushed by this in one sense. And he's just going, oh, wow. Like you could see it. Like there's this moment where he just realizes, like, I just lost 5 years. Like she's like 14 or 15. Like she's a teenager now. Like, oh my God, I've missed that. But at the same time, like he has another second of thought about it. You could see it in his face, and he switches to, but she's here and I'm here and we're here. And that is what is important.
That realization.
And yeah. My God, that scene got me hard. And I was like, dang it, I have 2.5 more hours of this movie. Like I was sitting there, I was like, I cannot handle this. Like this is too early. But I pulled it together basically to that last hour, and then I lost it for a while. So, but yeah, so don't feel bad, Yasha. There was a lot of feels in this film, on and off, and there's a lot of emotion if you've been tied to these films, and oh, it's all good.
Well, real quick, Michelle. I mean, before we go to Bobby and turn over his thoughts, anything else you wanted to say, spoiler wise, like about the movie? Just anything else?
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna be annoying and interject here and there.
Okay, that's fine. I'm giving you your chance now. Is what I'm saying. If there's anything else you want to say, okay. I mean, I'll say real quick. I mean, you guys are talking about emotional moments, and I guess I alluded to it earlier. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Yasha. I honestly didn't really have a major emotional reaction to Black Widow dying. I mean, not to say it was a great scene, and I love the way that scene played out, but I didn't tear up or anything from it. I was just, I don't know. Sorry. I love Black Widow. She's great, but Michelle, you're giving me a look.
She's a great character.
Yeah.
I like just kind of was like, oh, that's sad.
Right.
And then I was like, I'm ready to move on. But like I said, the whole scene with Nebula and Rocket holding hands, I thought that was much more emotional for whatever reason. I was like, oh man, that's really sad.
But and I even heard before seeing the movie some reviews from people, spoiler free, that like, oh, they had cried like 10, 12 times in this movie, and
like me.
And I was watching it going, I mean, I guess I could see where people would cry, but I'm like, I'm definitely not having these kind of reactions in this movie, like not 10 or 12 times tearing up kind of thing. But there's no doubt for me, Tony Stark, his death, I thought was just acted incredibly well on both sides by him and Gwyneth Paltrow. And I agree with you, Yasha. It's not like I'm a huge Gwyneth Paltrow fan, but her acting there was incredibly good.
It was really good.
His was spot on.
His was gut-wrenching.
With as little to nothing. He's saying almost nothing. I mean, but it's perfect.
It's all face.
And man,
his reactions.
Yeah, it's so good. And I definitely had an emotional reaction to it the first showing, but for some reason, man, that second showing, it hit me hard.
It did.
And it started there, but for me, it's definitely the way that his relationship with his daughter had been developed through the movie, how important it was to him that, nothing in the last 5 years get changed. Just we're bringing people back. He doesn't want to lose what he has because he actually has a great life now.
He's grounded.
He's grounded. He's got this nice little lake house in the woods, and he's got a family, and his family, him and his wife are survived, and now they've got this daughter. But his relationship with his daughter, that was killing me in his death. His message to his daughter, and I mean, and it hit me in the first showing. That scene between Jon Favreau and the daughter on the porch. But man, I was dreading it to watch it again when we saw it a second time. I was just like, we're in that scene with them on the lake and they're doing the whole like panning through every main character we've seen in these movies. And I'm like, I know it's coming. I'm like, oh God, it's the next scene. Oh God, I'm not going to be able to deal with this. And it was rough. And like we said before, our 8 a.m. showing was quiet. So I'm sitting there like, I've got to hold it together because I'm going to be this blubbering mess. Then people are going to be turning around going, what in the hell is wrong with this guy? Like, but it was rough. Like it was rough. That scene was definitely the hardest, that scene on the porch with the cheeseburgers. Like,
watching Happy with her just.
I mean, and Favreau did a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Like he cracked his voice just at the right spot, just to try and tell her stories about her dad. And it was just like, your dad liked cheeseburgers too. I'm gonna get you all the cheeseburgers you want. And it's just like, oh my God, man. Like it's making me emotional just talking about that line right there. Is just like to tell a little kid that it's like, I'm gonna get you all the cheeseburgers you want. You're gonna never ever need for a cheeseburger as long as I'm around.
Right.
I mean, it's basically like your best friend. Like say you lost your best friend and they had kids. That's how you'd be with them. Like you'd be like, what do you need? I am here for you. I loved your father and I love you. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And the cheeseburger thing is a callback to the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
When after he finished doing everything, Happy takes him to go get Burger King, I think it was, and so
in the press
that's
conference,
his favorite food too. So
in the press conference, he's giving it. He's eating one as he walks in the press conference room. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah. It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a huge thing for him. So, I mean, the throwbacks. it'll be fun to like maybe watch the movie sometime and just like try and really count how many throwbacks they give to basically the first three movies, the big three, I should say, Cap, Iron Man, and Thor, because it was rampant. Like every time I turned around, there was a different like little tidbit, down to when Cap started fighting himself, and he's like, I could do this all day. He's like, yeah, I know you can do it all day. Like, it's just that was such a funny moment.
It was
but
so
at the
good.
same time, it's so good.
I have to say, it's a great joke, but the whole like, that's America's ass. And then he literally looks at his own butt and he goes,
That is America's ass.
That is America's ass. I'm like, yes, it is. That's
ass.
right. That's right, Cap.
That was pretty fantastic. That was pretty fantastic.
Sorry, it's just like the moment that Ant-Man says it is great, and the moment that Cap says it, I almost lost it. I was dying laughing.
So, I mean, yeah, and I could go on and on about the movie. There's tons of things
We
I
gotta
could
let
bring
Bobby
up.
go.
But Bobby, if anything, I'm just going to let you go, and maybe we'll jump in when we can. But what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, well, to come back around to something you mentioned as far as with the whole Tony Stark's death, and to me, I thought it was so important and such a critical aspect of the film that he has a daughter and that his life was the better, for all intents and purposes, after everything happened. Because in my mind, I guess most people thought with this movie they were going to use time travel to fix things. And in my mind, I just sort of assumed that they would fix it and basically make things back the way they were. But by throwing him in with having his family, he's like, no, I can't erase essentially what's happened before. We can only try and bring back people who've been essentially snapped out of existence. So that meant living with the fact that it's still 5 years later and everything happened. And so we can only try and bring them back in this current time, as opposed to trying to essentially back to future it and rewrite history or do something to correctably change to where that never happened, because he did have that to lose. He didn't want to try and do that. And even though, and technically speaking, I guess if you go by their rules that they set up for time travel, technically, I don't know that you would have been able to change it per se. But yeah, for me, the way this movie opens, it got me from the start, just because it opens and there's no page flip. It just goes into a cold open where you see Hawkeye and his daughter, and they're target practicing, and he's out with his family, and you know what's going to happen because obviously you can tell that it's prior to the snap. And so to get that set up was just such a powerful way to start off this film, because then you go from that into showing what you get with Tony and Nebula in space, and the effects that they used on Robert Downey Jr. to make him look so emaciated and skinny. And it was like, it was just such a crazy look to it. And even within that realm, I felt like, oh, they're doing two things here. They're kind of giving us a little bit of flavor. And I wonder if this is where some part of James Gunn came in, is because when they open to them, they're playing some music, but it's not, as far as I know, off of any of the other mixtapes for Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'm like, oh, is this a song that's not been played on one of the other, that's just one of Quill's songs that we haven't heard before. So it still has that Guardians kind of feel. And seeing that relationship between Nebula and Tony Stark, I thought was like, that would happen because they're sharing this limited amount of time together, but their only conversation pieces are with each other. And so you get to see Nebula actually change and have this arc as she's going through. And once you get to the point where everyone's back and they kind of come up with like, all right, we need to go and essentially take care of Thanos. And that's when we get the Avengers title card. And it's like, man, okay, here we go. We're off to the races. And when they get there, and Thanos is there, and he's kind of like Farmer Thanos, it's kind of like, all right, he's accomplished what he needs to do, and they come in and they execute their plan to the exactness, and they come through with Captain Marvel and are able to subdue Thanos, but not just subdue him. Thor cuts his head off, and I'm just like, whew, okay. This is about 15 minutes into the movie right now, and Thanos has no head. So let's see where we're going after this. And they just keep on throughout the movie making sure that they're at least a step ahead of you in terms of what they're doing. Because then after that, then it's like, all right, we get to the aspects of where they figure out they can go back in time because they've got Scott and he's talking about the quantum realm. And then that's when you see that Tony has a daughter and you're like, man, okay, because they go say in 5 years later. And just that impact of seeing that things have changed and they've had to live with this for this amount of time, knowing that there was nothing else that they could do, it really was effective because you just don't know what the plan is. And when they come up with the whole time heist idea, it just became an aspect of a different movie. It switched gears to being a different type of a movie and having that sort of Back to the Future 2 aspect of playing with the old scenes in movies that we've seen before, I thought was just so clever and so well done in a way that it was just fascinating to sit back and watch that unfold. And part of the humor that comes through is when you see Thor and he's fat Thor and he's just like so dejected from everything that's happened with Thanos from last movie when he didn't do the headshot and kill him instantly, as opposed to, he just essentially tried to bury it in his chest. You see that effect on him and that he has taken it hard to the point that he's just let himself go literally. And then being able to have that sort of aspect of him wanting to redeem himself that plays through the entirety of the movie once he kind of gets on board. But for a while, he's just kind of like, he's there, but he's not there. And so seeing his character kind of come around and being more of like, I guess this person that wants to be who I forget how he put it exactly, but his mom had told him to be who you are and not who you're supposed to be or something of that nature. And I thought like, yeah, that, you see Thor kind of going through that. And the scene for me, actually, that was one of my favorites was the scene that David, you mentioned, and Yasha, you mentioned is not being too emotional for you, which is with Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Oh,
and
thank you, Bobby.
That scene played so well to me just because the way they feel for each other and seeing the aspect of who was going to be the one to sacrifice. I thought it was so clever because it also was like a callback to Civil War when they're fighting each other. They're so evenly matched and they were trying to get the better of each other. And I was like, who is going to end up being the one? And as soon as Jeremy Renner jumped off, or Hawkeye jumped off the ledge, I was like, oh, I guess it's him. And then Scarlet Witch. And then Black Widow comes in and tackles him as they're going off the edge. I was like, oh, it was just, I was literally on the edge of my seat just because I couldn't tell who was going to essentially have to sacrifice himself. And when it was Black Widow, in that moment, I was like definitely sad and could feel the emotion. But it was after that scene when essentially Hawkeye comes back without her and everybody's like, where's Nat? And then they have that scene out by the water and it's like Thor's not accepting it. And Hawkeye's like, will you go grab your hammer and you tell that red guy to bring her back? And it's like, I could feel it in that moment. And I was just like, damn, yeah, she's not coming back. Because before I'm thinking, well, maybe there's some way that they can fix this, reverse it somehow. But in that moment, that's when I realized. And then Bruce says it, he's like, she's not coming back. And it was just, I could feel it. And so that was like one of my points where I was like, okay, this movie's going to start to get me.
You know what? That got me. That scene got me too. And it's funny because I think you and I think that got both of us. But it's funny how you had that scene play out for you, and for me, that scene, I knew it was going to be Nat. I knew from the moment they basically got to that. Once I realized it was going to be her and Hawkeye going there, I was like, oh God, Nat's gonna die. Like, I knew it. Like, I knew from the moment I realized it was the two of them going to Vormir. I was like, oh God, no. I was like, Nat's going. And so as I'm watching the scene, I'm realizing, I'm like, they're gonna fight for this. And I'm like, I was more curious just to see how the fight would play out. And so as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is gonna be rough to watch her fight him to die. Like, that's like, think about that. She's fighting him to kill herself. Like,
yeah,
like that is an insane thought if you think about it. And like the moment he jumps off, I'm like, she's gonna get him. She's gonna grab him. I'm like, there's just no way. And then you see her grab him, and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, this just is dragging on. I'm like, this fight is dragging on. It's just killing me watching it. Like, and I'm sitting there like, I know it's gonna be her. And so for me, it dragged, not in a bad way. Just it was just this like, oh God. And then like their second showing, I was like, God damn, I have to watch this again. I was like, oh my God, I have to watch this battle between these two people. But I loved it, and it crushed me all at the same time. And honestly, like, the lake scene gets me a little bit, but what really gets me about that whole thing, honestly, is when Hawkeye wakes up the same way that Thanos did with the Soul Stone. He's in the water, and he's holding it, and there's this moment of like, I got the stone, and then it's the realization of Nat's gone, and he just starts crying there on the planet, and I'm just like, that killed me to watch Hawkeye cry for her. Like, I was just like, anyways, I'm with you, Bobby. That scene is serious.
I just think that in general, and you guys kind of touched on it as well, is that I feel like everyone brought their A game to the movie in terms of the acting and just really selling how emotional these scenes were to be and how it really would feel for these characters. And I think that's what helps solidify the feeling that you get when you leave the movie theater. But another scene that I really loved was so that scene, and we've sort of talked about it before with Cap having the hammer. As that fight was happening, in my first showing that I was at that Thursday showing, when the hammer was on the ground and they showed the close up of it moving and starting to lift, I knew in my bones what was getting ready to happen, and I couldn't help it. I was like, "Oh!" And I don't know if people were looking at me in that moment or not, but I couldn't help it. It just came out, and then a minute later, not a minute later, but you see the hammer go to Cap, and then everyone else kind of got what I was already thinking in my head, and everybody just erupted, and it was just such a moment that is so catered to the fans. And just from that paying off that moment that you see in Ultron when he nudges it, when everybody's trying to lift the hammer, just paying that off and seeing the way Cap uses this hammer as if he's had it all along. I mean, he's calling out lightning to strike. He's using it to throw at his own shield, and just the way he uses it. And there's such a splash page moment, like literally out of the comic books, when he jumps off the rock coming at Thanos and he connects with the uppercut of the hammer, and you see him fly back. It's just like so powerfully cinematic, and something that you would definitely see on a 2-page spread print of a comic book. And it was just, there's so many moments that are like that. And even though they didn't use her much, I thought they did effectively use Captain Marvel when she came through, because that was another moment I knew what was getting ready to happen before the crowd did, as she came, because when the turrets turned and were shooting in the air and they were like, they're firing at something, I was like, oh, it's got to be Captain Marvel. And she comes through and wrecks shop. I mean, she just went through that ship like a hot knife through butter, and then just took it down. And her fighting Thanos was just, that was epic too, because you could see that she was really getting the better of him, because at one point he headbutted her and she didn't even budge. And I was
She didn't
just like,
flinch. She didn't bat an eye or nothing. He
Yeah.
literally had to take the power stone
Yeah,
to even
exactly.
get a hit on her. Like, that's how freaking powerful she is.
Yeah, she was bending his hand back, and the knuckles were starting, and he had to take the stone.
Yep.
But that's what I love about Thanos, though, is that, for one, he's super powerful, but he just doesn't rely on the fact that he's super strong. He's also very calculating and smart in battle, and he's just a good fighter. So it's like he's such a threat, because the other time, that time that Michelle mentioned, when he grabs that power stone, he knew he was losing, and so he grabbed the power stone, which would give him extra strength, and he used that to knock essentially Captain Marvel out for the rest of the fight, essentially. But before that, when Scarlet Witch comes to him, she's taking it to him too, because he's up in the sky and he's getting his armor ripped, and she's like really lighting him up. And then that's when he calls for the fire, rain fire. And then it was like he knew he needed to distract her because she was taking him out too. But he's so smart to not just rely on his own strength, but rely on all his resources to be able to take things out. And I love when he was like talking to, I forget if he was talking to Tony or one of or maybe Captain America, but he was just like, usually these things aren't personal, but I'm going to enjoy destroying your planet very, very much. It's just like he was just so angry at that point, but still keeping it calm, cool, and collective. And I just thought, like, I just don't think you will ever get a villain so cool and so I guess layered as Thanos. And I think the second time that got me emotional was once the battle was done and Tony had used the glove. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he comes out and he's like, Mr. Stark, we did it. We did it. Everything's okay. It's going to be okay. And he's just quivering in his voice. And you can see the look on Tony's face that he's sort of not there, present, kind of probably contemplating the fact that he's about to die. And that's when Gwyneth Paltrow Pepper comes and kind of picks up Peter and moves him. And she kind of goes to him. And it's just like everything within that started the emotion train. And it started to roll at that point, to the point where obviously once you get to the funeral, it was just like, oh man, really? Or this is where it is. And the thing that I mentioned in a text that we had going around, where I was like, I did something in this movie that I've never done before. And it was at the end of the movie when the credits start to roll. After a point, we get to where they start going through all the characters, and then when they get to the main characters and they do the signature cards of the actors, when they got to Robert Downey Jr.'s, I didn't know this was going to happen for myself, but it just happened, and I just started clapping. And I was like the first person to start clapping, and then the whole crowd started clapping. And I was like, what hit me in that moment was just thinking of this whole journey that started with Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau, and this journey that we've taken for 10 years with him, as well as all these other characters, and knowing that we won't get anything like that again. And having someone like Robert Downey Jr. be this character and be there for all the fans and everything he's done through the years, like, it's getting me now just thinking about it. It's incredible. So yeah, that was really powerful for me. And just so many different things in this movie I thought were just such cool, like Yasha said, touchbacks to some of the other movies that they've done, just paying off little things here and there. And getting to see Captain America end up with Peggy in the past is just like such a beautiful little bow tie to this whole series. And seeing him come back as old Cap and pass off his shield to Sam and hoping to see where that goes with Captain America or Bucky and or Winter Soldier and Falcon, seeing where that will go, and some of the other little threads. It seems like that they were setting up like the Asgardians of the Galaxy, with Thor being with the Guardians. I really would love to see that movie be played out as that kind of way, them searching for Gamora. And the other thing that they touched on in the movie that I don't know if it's going that way, but at one point when they have the delegates sort of around the world or the universe kind of checking in, there was a mention of a small earthquake underwater near Wakanda, and they were asking him if Koye would check that out or whatever. And she was like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And that made me think, is that their way of sort of introducing Namor and Atlantis? And so,
oh my God, I totally missed. I didn't even think about, like, I caught that scene, but oh, dude.
Yeah, because
little
in the
things like
comics,
that,
they're like enemies. They fought, Wakanda versus Atlantis, and so it's like, man, if they're setting that up, that's awesome. But
dude.
There's just so much, and there's obviously way more to unpack. But it was just such a lovely ride to be on, and just everything that was in this movie. And I will say, I know you guys kind of mentioned that it didn't necessarily bother you. But for me, when David mentioned earlier, like where this movie falls for him, and as far as it being better than Infinity War, I will say, like, on a level of enjoyment, of just pure, just excitement and action and the experience of it, it's probably my favorite MCU movie. But as a movie, I think I still would rank Infinity War higher than it, just because as a movie, if I'm looking at it from technical standpoints, then the plot holes that are developed because of time travel, I can't say it's as well constructed a movie as something like Infinity War is to me.
Right.
I think David would fully agree with you on that.
And I agree, because there's no doubt, like, is there more enjoyment to be had in Endgame than Infinity War? Absolutely. Like, but yes, I didn't walk away from Endgame or Infinity War having really bumped on a lot of moments in the movie, and as much as I enjoyed Endgame, and I really, really did,
you like Infinity more.
There's stuff in the first and second hour that I did bump on, and things that, because of time, we're not going to get into. And I mean, and Michelle and I talked about a lot of this in Spoiler Effect, and I mean, man, I would love to talk to you guys about it, and maybe we'll do a part 2 of this at some point this week. I don't know, but I mean, that would be the only reason, like, I would put this like beneath Infinity War right now.
Yeah, but like you said, it takes nothing away from this movie. It's just awesome, and breaking records left and right. I think they were projecting right now that it's possibly at 350 million. And then we also are saying like maybe 1.1 billion around the world with this opening weekend. So obviously people are loving it, and it's going to continue to do well. And it's just a matter of how long and how well it will do. But great job to Russo's, to Kevin Feige, to everyone over at the MCU who had anything to do with these movies, and just bringing it home for everybody.
Okay,
well,
so
Captain Marvel came in a close second with 8 million. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah, no, it's funny that it was at 4, I think, last week, and it now bumped up to 2 this weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
I mean, and we've talked about this before real quick, but it's like, this movie, typically movies have a 50% drop off, on their second weekend. Worldwide, this movie has made $1.2 billion according to Box Office Mojo. So by accounts, if it does have a 50% drop off next weekend, it's still decimating anybody that comes up against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Michelle, you were saying?
Yeah, it's incredible.
So I've got a 2-parter here. One just a statement, and 2 is a question. So first, I want to say it's funny how this film ends, because honestly, after seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I was not amazingly impressed with it. I am now so stupid excited for Guardians 3. I cannot begin to express. Like, it's like what you were saying, Bobby. Like, honestly, as Guardians of the Galaxy, like, I am so freaking excited now for Guardians 3. I cannot begin to express to you. And I kind of was at the end of the second one just because of the whole Adam aspect of everything. But now I'm like, oh God, this is going to be so good. Like, I'm crazy excited for this film now. Especially one, we got Gunn back, which is a big thing. But two, just now that I'm seeing Thor's tied, I'm like, oh, I'm so all in. I'm super excited now, which I had not been at all. I'd been like, 3, whatever. I've been very kind of whatever about it. And now I'm in, mostly just because of this film. So here's the second part. So here's my question real quick. We're all going to go real fast. Tell me, what was your favorite moment of the film? What you thought was the funniest moment, and what you thought was the saddest moment.
Okay.
We'll go in order of the bowl destiny. How about that?
Oh, so I get to go first.
I mean, I can go first.
No,
I mean, go backwards.
I'll go first.
Okay.
My favorite moment of the movie. Sorry, I hadn't thought about this, so on the spot. Oh man, I don't know. That's tough because there's a lot of great moments in this movie. I mean, there really are.
No, there are.
I don't know if I could answer it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, funniest.
Funniest. I mean, and that's tough too. I mean, I love the moment at the end, like as you're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor. Being him and Quill, like who's in charge, is amazing. But I mean, that's really quick off the top of my head. There's a lot of other great, funny moments throughout this movie that I liked, and I feel like there's one in particular I'm forgetting. But anyway, that comes to mind.
Saddest?
Well, I've talked about that already.
Yeah.
Cheeseburgers.
Happy and Madison? Mason?
Yeah, I don't remember.
What's her name?
Maybe
Morgan.
Some M name.
Morgan and Happy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Yasha, you. Boom.
I would probably say one of my favorite moments of the film was when Captain America was fighting Captain America. Both
so
funny and emotional. I think Chris Evans has a great, that was just a great scene all in itself. I've said this before. I think Chris Hemsworth has a fucking remarkable talent when it comes to comedy. Like, he's really, really good. Like, when I watched Ghostbusters that he was in, he made that movie. Like, he was the best part about it. He does have an amazing talent for humor. I think his delivery, I don't know what it is, but I just think he's hilarious. So almost anything that he said when he first came on camera as Fat Thor was just, or even just out of shape Thor, let's just say that to be a little bit more sensitive.
It's Fat Thor.
Yeah, but I mean, he was just so funny with Meek and everybody in his house, and he's just kind of like a hobbit. A hermit, was just remarkable. But the Chris Evans scene was probably just, bar none, one of the fight scene where he's fighting himself was funny, emotional. It was great. Like, that was just brilliant. And then I think towards the end, I mean, it's hard to narrow it down because there were so many great moments. One of the most emotional parts, I think, was for me too, was when everybody finally came in. And when I'm talking about Sam and he's like, on your left, and everybody just comes in and you see that he's not by himself. But that shot where he's standing there facing off against Thanos and his entire army just not going to stop, like, I get goosebumps just talking about it. Like, it was bar none one of the best scenes in the whole movie. And when everybody else showed up and you can see where he finally gets out the Avengers Assemble, like, it was pretty it was a special moment. That was really definitely a special and emotional moment for me, at least. I don't know why, but it hits me.
Saddest, I think.
Yeah.
No, for you.
What's your saddest?
Saddest?
Yeah, your saddest.
My saddest moment, honestly, saddest but funny too was, I think, when Robert Downey Jr. said goodbye to his dad. And honestly, the moment in the first part of the movie when Rocket holds Nebula's hand, like, they just both seem so defeated and almost like everybody they cared about is gone and they only have each other and they can't stand each other. Mm-hmm. Like, that whole contrast was really emotional for me for whatever reason. Like, him just kind of sitting up there, like, relieved that she was there, but at the same time, like, didn't know how to deal with that. Like, the Rocket was such an interesting aspect of the film and just so fun to watch, like when he interacted with Nebula, and just up to, even if it was on a small scale, just that scene right there, for whatever reason, like hit me right in that gut punched me pretty quickly with the film. Like I was just like, okay, it's gonna be all right. But yeah, that was sad. And obviously the end part with Robert Downey Jr. finally passing away, and that scene, with Gwyneth Paltrow, that was just, they nailed it on all aspects of it right then and there. Just nailed it. And I think, David, you hit it on the head when, Gwyneth Paltrow, and like I said, I'm not a huge fan, but she crushed it in that role, in that scene.
Bobby.
So my favorite part, I would say, is similar in that when you hear Sam say on your left and everybody comes through, and everybody has this moment when they're coming through the portals, and you see all the different heroes and gathered, and you see that look on Thanos' face where he's like, okay, this actually looks like this might be a bit of a challenge. And that was probably my favorite moment, just that reveal of everybody coming through, because Cap was just back on his feet, strapped the shield tight, ready to just take on Thanos and his whole entire army by himself. And to see them come through and him say Avengers Assemble, that was probably like my favorite moment. My funniest moment was actually when they were on, I forget, Morag or something. I forget the name of the planet, but it was from the original Guardians of the Galaxy. And they're playing the music, and you hear the music and it's all good. And then the music stops and you just see Quill singing the song. And it just sounds so funny to see that scene without the music and him singing. And it just sounds so funny. And then Rhodey turns to Nebula and like, so he's an idiot. And she's like, yeah. And he just knocked him out.
That was pretty great.
That's one of my favorites. It's up there. That moment, I don't know what it is about that moment, but he literally looks at Nebula and just straight dead face is like, so he's an idiot. Okay. All right. And he just punches him in the back of his head. It's such a good moment.
It's so
I'm
good.
so glad you liked that one, because that one killed me. I giggled even harder, I think, the second viewing. So good.
That's so good. And my saddest was, like, obviously I sort of mentioned it before with Peter Parker, as he's seen his mentor and almost father figure die in front of his eyes. And then just the other sort of part of that is when they're doing the Tony is giving the voice message to everyone about, the mission, and if he doesn't come back, and then how he signs off with the Love You 3000. That was probably like the moment that probably was the saddest for me.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to echo a lot of what you guys said. Honestly, if I had to pick just one moment, my absolute favorite moment is the moment Cap stands back up and you hear Sam over the comm and he says, on your left. And literally, it's the moment he says, on your left. My heart swelled with so much joy and anticipation of the next few minutes to come. Like, I was exploding, and the theater was exploding, and it's like everybody was literally gasping for like, this is the moment. And like you could tell, like it was thick, and it was such an awesome moment in the theater, and also just as a whole in the film. Like it literally was just, it was just too cool. It played out so ridiculously well. And then I would have to say, for me, the funniest thing, and there's a lot of things that, I mean, again, I think the humor on this film was probably the strongest it's been in a while for a Marvel Studios movie. So, it really is the end. It is Thor with the Guardians and him and Quill going at the who's in charge. And honestly, Chris Hemsworth, he is so ridiculously funny, and he's so good at it. And it's one of those things, like, you would never think that from him as an actor, but his delivery and timing is just amazing. It's so good. It's so good in that moment, and it is ridiculously funny. And then for me, the saddest, I would have to say it's it's basically the whole end of Tony Stark. It's Pepper saying, we're going to be all right. It's him saying, I love you 3000. And then Happy saying, I'll buy you all the cheeseburgers you want. Those 3 were lines, like just dagger, turn, dagger, turn, dagger, turn. Like it just was killing me. Like it was rough. It was a rough go there right at the very end of the film. But I loved it all the same at the same time. It hurt, but it hurt so good. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it, at least for this episode. Maybe we'll revisit this because we could probably revisit it for about 5 more hours if we wanted to.
I can see a smaller part 2 of this.
Right.
See it.
So, with that, guys, as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. What did you think of the movie? What do you think of everything we had to share? You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at @flicker_effect. These episodes are available just audio, but they are available on YouTube as well. youtube.com/flickereffect. And yeah, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app, all those places, Google Play Music, just look for Flicker Effect and you will find us. You found us here somehow. So,
and you're going to be doing the spoiler effect video for YouTube.
Yeah, spoiler effect. By the time this drops, it will probably already be up. We recorded a spoiler effect review of this as well, and that will be not only on the podcast feed but on YouTube. Actual video for that one.
Right.
So look for that on video. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.